Okay, we will continue on with the medial part of the brain. So this is the inside, right, of the brain. And we have two very small structures yet left. So you'll have to get kind of close up to see them. All right, and this is the anterior commissure and the posterior commissure. And so they're gonna look like little circles. So the anterior commissure, it's very, very teeny. It's numbered 46 right here. There's a little teeny circle. I'm hoping you can see it if I get this close. Yeah, so right there, there's just a little circle here. And it really isn't a circle, it's really some fibers that, it's just like this corpus callosum I said was a connection between the two hemispheres. So is this little anterior commissure. So it's really like it's like fibers running this way. And here you're cutting a cross section of it. Okay, the posterior commissure is also teeny, teeny, teeny. It's this little number 48 right here. So there's a bigger, we're going to talk about this in a minute. This is like a bigger circle, but there's like a teeny, teeny circle there. That's the posterior commissure. All right, on this brain, oh boy. Yeah, on this brain you can see here is the anterior commissure here. It's kind of a little teeny circle right there, and then on the back it's this little circle right here underneath the kind of pink thing. All right, posterior commissure, anterior commissure. Then the thalamus. This is easier to see. So this and you'll see it from a lot of different directions, but kind of right in the middle of the brain is the thalamus. It's a pretty big egg-shaped structure, and we'll see it from more sides. In this one, it's going to be right here. Here's the thalamus. So it's kind of that central kind of oval-shaped structure, the thalamus. The optic chiasm is going to be, so here we're seeing one part of it right here. You kind of see this line coming up. I'll put the two brains together here because then you can see it better. All right. So in this brain, when you put it together, you'll see this. Here's this kind of line, white line right there, and then there's one over here. I'll put them together a little better here. But together they make kind of an X, and that's the optic chiasm. This is the pituitary gland here, which I'll try to get out of the way. But behind it, there are actually these two, this structure right here and this structure right here, and they kind of come together, and that's called the optic chiasm. It's a little hard to see there. All right. In this brain, I guess I'll have to put them together again really quick for you to see it. But you can kind of see again, it's this line coming here and this line coming up here. They're part of the optic nerve. That's the optic chiasm. All right. Then the pineal gland is just this little pink thing that I said before, not the big one down here. That's pituitary. But up here, there's a little kind of pink structure down here, right above the posterior commissure. And it's a little, also in this structure, in this big brain, you can see it coming down here a little more clearly. It's this big, this structure right here where my finger's on. Right, so it's orange. That is the pineal gland. Okay. Then the superior colliculus. Okay, this will be, so underneath the pineal gland, there's two bumps. There's kind of this bump and this bump. This bump and this bump. This top one, this that my fingertip is right on, superior colliculus, and this is the inferior colliculus. And when you look from this side, you'll kind of see them as two bumps. All right, so here, the same thing. They're right below that pineal gland is the pink one here, and then you can't really see them so well as bumps here, but the front part, here you can, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a bump here that's an inferior colliculus, and then behind it is the posterior colliculus. So there's two kind of bumps right there. If I do it just right, you might be able to see that they're kind of bumps. All right. And that is superior and inferior colliculus. I wonder if you can see it better here on this structure. Anyway, that's the pineal The pink one there is the pineal one, and then there's a superior and inferior colliculus there, 2 bumps. All right, then the Sylvian aqueduct is going to be, this is easier to see. This, you see there's kind of a line here. So this is actually spaces in the brain. We're going to talk about those, you'll see them better later, but the third ventricle is right here. It's a space that's right in the middle of the brain between the 2 thalamuses. And it is connected to this, which is the fourth ventricle. And it's connected by this thing called the Sylvian aqueduct. So this line here going down, it's a hollow, well, it's a hollow space, but it contains a fluid in it. That's the Sylvian aqueduct. And then this was the third ventricle is up here. The fourth ventricle is here. All right, so on this structure, the third ventricle is here, right by where I said the thalamus is. You'll see that better later. I know it's hard to tell now, but it's like a space between the 2 hemispheres. Here's that Sylvian aqueduct coming down here, and it continues down through, that's right, becomes the central canal and the spinal cord. And then here's the fourth ventricle, this space. So a ventricle is a fluid-filled space. All right. Then the arbor vitae, very easy to see here. So in the cerebellum, this is the cerebellum, right? If you kind of see, it looks like a little tree, like all these little extensions. That's called the arbor, like A-R-B-O-R, arbor, and vitae, like the living tree. All right. Then the vermis of the cerebellum. So here you see half of the cerebellum. It's kind of the midline of the cerebellum. So it's this part right here. There's a structure that like goes right down the midline. On this, it's a little hard to see, but you can kind of see there's a midline here. We'll see it better in another model, but there's this midline structure. That's the vermis of the cerebellum. Medulla oblongata, that's pretty easy. It's this bottom structure here. So it's like the lowest part of the brain. It goes right into the spinal cord. So this is the medulla oblongata. Above it is the pons. So this is the pons. It's like a big bump. A bulb, kind of big bump. On this side, you can maybe see them very nicely. The medulla oblongata down here. This is the pons. It gets kind of big, the pons. All right. And then the cerebral peduncle is kind of above the pons. You see there's the pons is kind of this round shape, and then the cerebral peduncle is this kind of white coming up. That's a tract of nerve fibers, cerebral peduncle. So it's this part right here that's coming up. Okay. In this structure, same thing. Here's the pons is this kind of big part, and then what goes up is the cerebral peduncle, kind of behind the pons. All right. The tuberous cinereum, it's kind of hard to show you that, but it's between the, we haven't done the mammillary body yet, so I should show that to you. This was what we said was the optic chiasm before. Remember this line? All right. Here there's a bump, mammillary body, and between those, this is the tuberous cinereum, so this area right here. All right. On this model, here you can see this was that optic chiasm. This was that line there. And you can kind of see the mammillary body, it's this little white, there's a little white bump right there that's colored all white. That's the mammillary body. So the space between those is the tuberous cinereum. All right. That's the best view of it. We'll see more of that later. And then the last thing is the lateral ventricles, which you can't really see in these models very well. You can see a little bit. So this one comes apart. This is where I said was the third ventricle, and the first and the second are inside. Here you see there's space, there's kind of a space here, and there's kind of a space here, and in here there's kind of the space. We're going to see those much better later on. But there's a first ventricle and a second ventricle, and then I showed you the third and the fourth. And the first and second are usually just called lateral. I don't even know which one's the first and which is the second. They just say lateral ventricles. Okay.